Erev Shabbat Shalom, we're in English. Shabbat Shalom. This week we're finishing Parshat Bechukotai. We're finishing the final portion of the book of Vayikra, a book which is describing the service in the temple. At the very end of the book, in this week's portion, we describe what happens in the positive potential and what happens in the negative outcome if we don't commit to this beautiful and brilliant game plan that the Torah is describing for us. And very often we look at the negative, and the negative is very negative. I, as my nature, want to encourage us to look at the positive. And the positive is a statement of how things are meant to work. And it describes you will live securely in the land, and you'll be at peace, and there'll be enough food, and there'll be prosperity, and everything will be good. And then in verse 11 it says, "V'natati et mishkani betochachem." I will place my mishkan, my dwelling place, in your midst, among you. And it's a strange climax, and it brings back to the very beginning when the Jewish people leave Egypt in the middle of the book of Exodus. They leave Egypt, they receive the Torah at Mount Sinai, and the first set of commandments they receive after the details of the Ten Commandments and Parshat Mishpatim, they receive the commandment to make for God a sanctuary. Vasuli mikdash v'shachanti b'tocham. You will make for me a sanctuary and dwell among you. And then we have a lot of details of how to build the sanctuary and the whole book of Vayikra about the service of the sanctuary. And then in the middle, in chapter 19, we start and make a significant shift to the interpersonal commandments, to the commandments of love your neighbor as you love yourself, love the stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. And then the book ends as the Jewish people are, as it were, gearing up to go into the land of Israel. It doesn't work out. They end up spending 40 years wandering the desert. But the game plan was they're going right in, and we're told that God will dwell in our midst. And Rav Nachman of Breslov explains that the Mishkan, the sanctuary for God, is not a physical place that's off somewhere, but it's dwelling within the relationships that exists between, if you're blessed, with parents, with siblings, with a spouse, with a child, with friends, with co-workers, with your neighbors. It's those midsts. It's betochachem. In your midst is where God is found, is where God's abode is. I bless us as we conclude Sefer Vayikra that more than any other book has many details of of mitzvot, of technical mitzvot between God and man, ben adam lemakom, between the person and the divine. Let us remember that the ultimate goal, at least according to this interpretation, is natati et mishkani betochachem. God will dwell in our relationships. May the relationships we build be ones that merit the divine presence in our midst. Shalom.